Welcome to The Smart Divorce on Divorce Source Radio, helping you move forward with focus, hope, and confidence, saving you time, money, and your sanity as you build a better life post-divorce. I'm Steve Peck. Deborah Moskovich, divorce consultant, educator, and author of The Smart Divorce, brings you the leading experts and researchers in the divorce arena. We'll also speak with those in the trenches, people who've learned from their divorce and how their experience has changed their lives. And they would tell you for the better. Divorce can be a beginning, even if it looks like an end, and rich in opportunity to learn and grow from. And on the Smart Divorce Radio Show, we'll explore how to create a positive outlook post-divorce life. And now, here's Deborah. And she's back, ladies and gentlemen. Deborah Moskovich, how are you?
I am just fabulous. It's so great to chat. It's been so long.
In Hollywood,
I missed your voice.
Yeah, thanks. I've missed you too. In Hollywood, this is called a hiatus. We've been kind of taking a step back and getting a new groove here. And it's 2015, and Debbie's back for more amazing shows.
Happy New Year, everyone. And I'm excited to start off the year with an important topic. Some would say not such a happy topic, but one that is so important because they say this is a Canadian statistic, over half of girls over 16 have experienced domestic violence.
Wow.
What makes this show so different is the way our guest, Tim Wenzel, how he helps the victims out of abusive situations. He helps them physically. So it's just not advice, but how he actually goes and gets these women out of the physical situation. So I know we've talked about domestic violence before, and the links to interviews I'll include on our notes. But I think it's important too to explore some of the statistics, just to let our listeners know how important it is to listen to this show. Because if you're not a victim of domestic violence, you probably know someone that is. These are some Canadian statistics, and I'm going to share some American as well. On average, every 6 days, a woman in Canada is killed by her intimate partner.
Killed.
In 2011, from the 89 police reported spousal homicides, 76% of the victims, that's over 85%, were women. And on any given day in Canada, more than 3,300 women, along with their 3,000 children, are forced to sleep in emergency shelters to escape domestic violence. And so in the U.S., you have to extrapolate that to 10 times more.
10 times more?
10 times more.
Wow.
Because Canada's so peaceful? I don't know why. Yeah?
Because we're a little bit smaller.
Oh. Wow, that's
scary. We're a great
scary.
neighbor, but a little bit smaller.
I hope we can also touch base on domestic violence of women against men, because I know that happens too. A lot of times that's not reported, but we'll get into that.
Yes,
later.
that's true. That's true. According to the Department of Justice, each year Canadians collectively spend $7.4 billion to deal with the aftermath of spousal violence. So in the U.S., if my math is right, that's about $74 billion.
Wow.
And that figure includes immediate costs such as emergency room visits and future costs such as loss of income. I mean, these are really important things that I don't really think that are often considered. And then it also includes tangible costs, and this is really sad for me to even say this word, funerals, because all the women that are being killed, and intangible costs such as pain and suffering. And then domestic violence in the workplace. Various studies have estimated that the annual organizational cost of domestic violence could reach as high as $5 billion US.
Wow.
And the value of annual lost productivity could be as much as $728 million. So that's critical. I mean, we really have to pay attention to that, as 90% of workplace violence is related to employee divorce and child custody problems. More than 4 million women experience physical assault and rape by their partners. 1 in 3 female, these are U.S. statistics now. 1 in 3 female homicide victims are murdered by their current or former partner every year. And there is no profile to a domestic violence victim, right? Domestic violence and abuse can happen to anyone, regardless of age, gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, income, or other factors. And Steve, this goes back to your comment. Women and men can be victims of domestic violence.
Sure, and it's not just physical. It can be verbal too, right?
It could be verbal. It could be financial. There are so many forms of domestic violence. And we talked about that in another show, and I'm going to post that for our listeners that are interested in learning more about domestic violence. There's a very good interview with Penny Crowitz, domestic violence against women.
And Deb, have you run into people that when they know someone that's experiencing domestic violence, they kind of just sweep it off as like, I mean, why would they even stay there? I mean, I'd be gone right after someone hit me.
That's a great question for Tim.
Well,
we'll cover that. So without further ado, let's talk to Tim.
Hello,
little bit
Tim.
about Tim. But wait, let me tell you a little bit about Tim first.
Tell me a little bit about Tim.
He's a protective security consultant based out of San Francisco Bay. He founded the Wenzel Protection Group to provide security and consulting services to the U.S. government, foreign diplomats, corporations, and family. Wenzel Protection Group believes in making the world a better place. Their passion project has been working with victims of domestic violence. They're committed to providing education, consulting, and services that help these families live without fear. So just a little bit of disclosure. I met Tim last year on the plane, and I was so impressed by how he worked with victims of domestic violence. He actually goes to the homes of victims and helps them physically leave. I mean, I really wish we could clone you, Tim. But since we can't, he actually contributed a tip sheet to my book, The Smart Divorce Smart Guides. So without further ado, Tim, I would love to hear from you.
Hey, Tim Wenzel, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show. So, you know what? It was really fun to meet Deb on that 6-hour plane ride. And it was the longest I'd ever talked to somebody on a plane before in my life. Usually I try to, kind of say hi and divert and everything, but she won't let you. She just, hey, how's it going?
I'm one of those annoying passengers on the plane that people want to avoid. So. But I also met my boyfriend on the plane. So there you go. Like, it's been lucky for me that I met some amazing people.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great. And working on you, working with you for the book was really fun. Yeah,
the Smart Divorce Smart Guide. It was really fabulous. So let's talk about some of the points that you highlighted there. And one of them, and this is something I've never heard from anyone else, is choosing your team. How do you develop a domestic violence team? What is that?
Well, most of the time when people try to leave these types of relationships, they do so without a plan. And that they end up quickly being found. They end up without being able to articulate to anybody, their friends, family, a court, what exactly is going on. They have no support. And so, short story, they end up back in the relationship.
But when you say they're easily found, don't women often go to shelters and then those shelters aren't identifiable?
Sure. Well, sometimes they do, but depending on where you live, there's not a lot of shelters available. I'm from the farming community out in the Midwest.
Yeah.
There is not a lot of shelters available. Plus, everybody kind of knows everybody. And at the end of the day, you still have to go to work. You still have to take the kids to school. You still have to do this. You still have to do that. And that routine will get you found.
Oh, excellent. Those are excellent points.
Plus, who really wants to go to a shelter? I mean, if you don't have to, isn't that the last resort?
Yeah, it kind of is. But, the thing is most of the time when these people leave, they don't have a plan. They don't know where to go. So they may go to a shelter. They may try to go to a friend's house or a relative's house. And the money runs out. Their spouse starts showing up to work and creating a scene. And then the job's looking at them and saying, hey, what's going on here? So choosing your team is very important.
So who's in the team? Tell us more about the team.
So in your team, you need to have a couple people for sure. You need to have an attorney, somebody who's going to get you divorced if you're married, or somebody that's going to help you liaise with the police so that you can actually build a case, so that you have grounds to possibly get a restraining order to keep this person away. I don't always recommend a restraining order. It's very situational dependent. But you need solid legal advice, especially when you have kids. There's a lot of law, and Deb, you're more of an expert on this than I am, about, hey, parents have rights to see the kids and this and that and the other. So if you're not going to want the kids to be seeing the other parent, you have to build a case. You have to set a foundation.
That's a really good point, Tim. Sorry to cut you off, because in a really high conflict divorce, sometimes a parent or an individual will say, I've been abused. And so there's these false allegations. Mm-hmm. So working with a team and being honest about really what's occurred is critical for the long term. So I agree. Like you've got a great point, Tim.
Yeah, you need a divorce strategy if you're married. You need a custody strategy if there's kids involved. And, another point is you get attorneys who will take offense for the abused party, or they just see an opportunity and they're like, well, you need to get the house, you need to get this, and you need to get that. And, sometimes you don't need to fuel the fire. And a lot of people have gone and kept that house, and then after it's all said and done, the relationship's over, they're safe, and they go back to the house and they look around and say, I'm still imprisoned by this whole thing because it all happened right here.
Yeah, it brings back.
So those are all things to think about. Yeah.
Is there a time like that things get safer when you're going through this? Does time kind of heal? And Deb, you and I have talked about this in a lot of different shows about some states have a requirement that you're apart before you go through with divorce. In Michigan, where I'm from, they try to rush that through in about 6 months unless you have kids, really move it along. And I agree with you. It seems like the more you move, the more aggressive you can be. If you have that type of personality as your, soon-to-be ex, that's about putting fuel on fire, or what do you put on fire? Gas on fire. It's not good.
There is a time when it becomes safer, but that's very situational dependent, and you need to really get a read on the abuser. There will be a point when they start to lose interest and decide it's time to find a new victim. And I say that, and it sounds kind of terrible, but historically it's kind of true. These people don't abuse people because, it just turned out I didn't like that person. They abuse people because they like to have control.
Yeah.
And when they lose control, they try to get it back. And when it's clear it can't come back, okay, let's start over.
Yeah. So let's go back to the team for a minute. So we know that really people need to retain a lawyer or an attorney if you're in the U.S. But also, so where do you come in on that team? Where does a security professional come in?
Well, so the problem is that a lot of states in the U.S., and I would assume places in Canada, they have laws that the police have to follow when it relates to this stuff, okay? And so, the whole thing is people go to the police and say, the police can protect me. Well, that's actually not true. And I'm not saying anything bad about police. I'm friends with lots of police, and they do a great job. But here's the thing. They can't just do the right thing because it's the right thing. They have to do the legal thing. Okay?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So the legal thing is I've been hit, I've been beaten, or this is happening, okay? And I get called to the house as a police officer. Well, in most states in the US, now I have to take the accused abuser to jail so that he can see a judge, and there's a cool down period. And but the funny thing is, nobody really ever cools down during that period. He sits in jail for a weekend waiting for the judge to get in on Monday, and he's just becoming more angry.
Right.
So, don't call the police to have the abuser go away for the weekend. What you really need to do is get with an attorney, go down to the police department and say, we need to talk to a detective, and explain what's going on, and just say, hey, at this point in time, we're going to explain this to you, but you cannot press charges because here's our end goal.
Good point.
And then you can explain to them, so, hey, here's what's going on. This has been happening for years. I had an ER visit at this time, these things like this. And then you can have the police whose sole job is to investigate crimes, and they will help you build your case, working with you and an attorney. Now, where a security professional comes into it is the police are not going to help you leave. And the police cannot keep you safe. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the charter to do that. And so, there's certain very high risk cases to where, hey, this is going to turn into a stalking case. He's going to start going to your friend's house. He's going to start going to your family's house. He's going to start showing up at your job. He's going to try to find you. There's all these different things. There's been cases where actually friends and family have been verbally and emotionally battered by the abuser looking for them, that they start telling the victims, like, we can't help you anymore. This is too unsafe. Can you imagine you're in that situation, your friends and family, you turn to them for help and they're like, we don't want any part of this.
Right, because they're afraid for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So sometimes you need a security professional. Somebody can really take care of that. Unfortunately, it's pretty expensive, because here's the thing. If I work with somebody and I help them develop a plan to get out and they leave, well, what happens? They leave, I take them to a safe place. They get enrolled in counseling. They start, with their lawyer. They start with the court system and everything. Well, I have to spend a lot of time with them, because we have to figure out what is the abuser saying at this point. What's going on? We need to kind of gauge the situation. We need to help them through. We need to make sure, a lot of times, and this is during the planning cycle, there's a whole lot of planning to be done before you leave. You have to go and you have to talk to work and say, hey, is there any way I can work at a different location? Is there any way I can get on another shift? You have to become unfindable.
Leaving without a trace.
Yeah, leaving without a trace.
Which, is hard to do, right? For a lot of people. Just it's embarrassing. It's hard to go to your employer.
Oh, it's very hard, because you don't know how they're going to react.
I mean, they might be fearful for their own business and their own employees at that point.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, look at the statistics I shared with you earlier in the show.
So that's another bonus to having that security professional, because the security professional can go to the work with the victim and say, so here's what's going on. But we have a plan. Here's how things are going to work. And what are your concerns for the job site? Here are our concerns. Most likely, if we can change a shift, change a location, and do these things, if he comes and asks for her and she's not at work, he's going to stop looking there.
Yeah. Good point.
He might come 2 or 3 times. But they won't always cause a scene there, because if you go to a company and you start making trouble, the police are going to come.
So,
right?
Tim, how far in advance to leaving does an individual come to, should an individual come to you?
Well, I say an individual should come to me when they've decided to finally leave. People leave under a lot of different situations, and most of the time they will say, well, I can't take this right now, so I'm going to leave, and they run to a friend's house. But they're not actually prepared to leave, believe it or not. They haven't gotten themselves emotionally wrapped around it to say, you know what, this has to stop for reasons X, Y, Z. And I can't give them reasons X, Y, and Z. It may be because, hey, I'm tired of this every day, and maybe the kids shouldn't grow up with this. There may be a variety of reasons, but everybody has to find their own reason to say, you know what, this is it. We're leaving. Because every time you try to leave and run away and you have to find yourself back in that situation, the situation gets worse, and the abuser rises up and says, I'm going to make it harder for them to leave. Yeah. Now when the other person gets mad at me and I leave the house to go on a binge or whatnot, I'm taking the purse, the keys to the house, the keys to the car. I'm taking all of the money. I'm taking her debit card, everything. And so now he takes everything. You have no financial resources, no ID.
Oh, my God.
It just becomes harder.
What about a personal protection order? Are those the good things or bad things? I know a lot of people falsely, we've talked about this before, Debbie.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that a personal protection order is the answer. You go to the court, you tell them you're in fear of your life, You're being physically or mentally abused, and they issue this form. It's called different things in different states, but it all basically means the same thing. If this guy comes within a certain range of you, he can automatically go to jail. But again, like you said, Tim,
how long?
I mean, and what judges say as well is a piece of paper can never protect you from a speeding bullet.
Exactly. Exactly.
There's been many cases of people that get killed right in front of a police station with the restraining order in their hand. I mean, how terrible is that? So what a restraining order or a personal protection order really is, it's a court document. It's a step in building a case. It's saying, hey, I've done this because of X, Y, and Z. And really, it's a step to an end game. But if you're being abused, this person thrives over having control. That order saying you can legally no longer have that control or no longer come around me or no longer do these things or be at these places, a lot of times that just makes them want to exert that control over you and say, I'm not afraid of the cops. I've had clients to where the husband actually says, you know what? I will kill the police to get to you. I don't even care.
Oh my God, that's scary. So Tim,
and they're serious.
So walk us through the process. Someone that's abused comes to you and says, I got to get out. So then what do you do?
Well, the first thing I do is I really try to decipher whether they're ready to leave or not, which means we have a long conversation, sometimes several long conversations to figure out like, hey, are you going to go through with this? Because it only makes it worse if you go back. But second of all, I'm going to invest a lot of time. I'm not going to get paid for any of this. This is time away from my family, time away from my job. And so I need to make sure that you are ready. It's good for you. It's good for me. But most of all, you can't go back to that relationship. You have to break those ties. Once we decide that, yes, you're ready to leave, now we have to start talking about exactly what you've been going through. And this, and I'm not going to say having a security consultant makes any of this easier. In a lot of respects, it could make it a little bit more difficult because now you have somebody that you have to put complete trust in and say, hey, this is what I've been going through for the past few years. This is exactly what happens. I'm going to ask questions, say, hey, so when he engages in this type of behavior and you do X, Y, and Z, what is the reaction? And it forces this person to have to relive all these traumas and abuses, but it's so important to understand because once we leave, I'm going to have to keep tabs on the situation. And I need to be able to predict to a certain degree, when we do this, the abuser is going to do this. And so most likely, so we can prepare for that by doing these things. On the off chance he goes like this, then we can do these other things. So it's very assessment based. This is not a box plan. You can't just go to the grocery store and pick up a endangered family evacuation that works for everybody. This is very, very assessment based, and things are going to change. So that's part of the process, is really getting to know the situation and the abuser's tendencies so that you can predict what's going to happen.
So you're really forward thinking.
Yeah, you have to be. You have to be, because if you're not ahead of it, you're putting everybody in danger. And, when you go out and choose a security professional, let's start with what you're not looking for. You're not looking for Rambo. You're not looking for, you're not looking for, all these action figures, right? You're looking for somebody who can think ahead, who, I do assessments of situations. I do risk assessments for a variety of situations. I have experience protecting people. I've managed stalking situations, which a lot of times these become, which are very dangerous, by the way. I have a history of solving problems, designing programs, doing all these things, because that represents somebody who is familiar with security protocol, but also they can think critically and they can customize and they can say, okay, this is what we're going to try here, but we're going to have all these other options in case. And they can be very forward thinking.
But don't you have to be ready to physically engage if needed?
Well, the whole point of this, the way we do these evacuations, is to not ever interact directly with the abuser. When the victim has to go to court hearings and things like that, my approach is I don't ever want the abuser to know exactly who I am. That gives me so much more control over the situation, because he's never going to direct his anger to me. He's never going to act a certain way when I'm around. So, you have court cases. I can show up to the courthouse early. I can wait till he goes in, give you a call so that you can come in, and then I can just be hanging out in the lobby with everybody else that has different court appointments. And, when you show up, you go in the courtroom, and I can actually ensure as a good citizen that there's no, violent or any bad interaction, because, in a courthouse, you have people milling around. And if a lady comes in and this guy starts giving her a really hard time, I can just be a good citizen and say, hey, what's going on here? You can't do that here. Come on. I'll go get a bailiff, right? But he never has to know who I am, which keeps the situation actually de-escalated, because they don't want to draw extra people into this thing when they're trying to gain control.
Right. And back to Steve's point, when you're removing someone from their home, you're doing it at a time where you planned it so that in all likelihood, the perpetrator isn't home.
Yes. And so that's the one thing that we do is we try to plan out everything. You need a safe place to go. Okay. We're going to have the keys available to you at this location, probably not at your home, because things tend to get found. What are these? So we'll find places that you have access to, maybe a PO box, something like that. Maybe we'll leave it at a hotel desk nearby your house and say, okay, here's the keys to a safe house. We have to get you a place to live. We have to make sure where the kids go to school is safe. It's actually nice to do it during summertime when school is not in session. But, you can't always plan exactly when this is going to happen. But really, as long as we can talk to them about what is your routine, what does he know about your routine, and what's going on, we can change all these things in certain ways to make it more difficult for them to find you. We're going to work with the police and say, hey, and a quality domestic violence organization, we're not replacing them. But frankly, most of them aren't equipped. They'll say, hey, here's some good advice for leaving, but that's not our thing. That's very dangerous for us. If you come to one of our shelters, but we're not actually going to help you with that. But if we've talked to domestic violence organization, if we've talked to the police, we've talked to your attorney, everybody knows who everybody is, and say, well, you leave and the abuser files a kidnapping case. Like, oh my gosh, right? Well, hey, if you file a kidnapping case, that's got to be followed up on. So now all of a sudden we're in a position to where, hey, there's a warrant out for the arrest of, this victim and everything. And the victim doesn't even have to go anywhere most of the time. Myself, an attorney, domestic violence organization, and the detective we've been working with can go to whoever's prosecuting the case and say, hey, FYI, this is exactly what happened. Here is all our documentation. This is how long we've been working on this. There's no kidnapping here. We guarantee it.
So when you say kidnapping, I just want to clarify. So when the mom has taken the kids, right?
Yes.
So dad says she's taking the kids.
Yeah, she's kidnapped the kids from me.
Yeah.
And he's going to make up all sorts of stories and things like this. And, it's crazy how some of these things can turn.
Wow.
What do you tell the kids throughout this process?
Well, the one thing I don't do is tell anybody to lie. Because here's the thing. This is part of your life. This is not a temporary event. This is the first event to the rest of your life. So you can't lie to the kids and say, oh, we're going on vacation or this or that. You have to tell the kids, hey, look, here's what's going on. Mommy and daddy aren't getting along. And we can't live with daddy anymore. So we're going with these nice people and this and that and the other. And, like I said, again, all kids are at different age levels, different levels of understanding, and they react differently to things. So, generally the mother should come up with a good dialogue that she can speak to the kids about. They can ask questions, and they can feel safe in their very different and weird situation.
But I would think chances are the kids have seen the violence take place. Like, if it's that bad that you are going to leave without a trace, your life is pretty bad and your kids have seen it. So they know what's going on.
Yeah, you're right. But kids love their dads. And here's the thing. If you're a young kid growing up in a house where this happens, what's abnormal about it?
That's scary.
You have no idea what a baseline of normal is. And here's the really bad thing, guys. Historically, little boys that watch their dad abuse their wives turn out to do that same thing in relationships they have because it's normal. And little girls that grow up watching their moms get abused accept that same role because it is normal.
So then you've got to start therapy pretty soon afterwards. With
Absolutely.
Not only the mom, but the kids too.
Yeah.
Because there's a healing, like everybody needs to go through this healing.
Yeah, and part of your team is getting a good therapist, somebody that specializes in domestic violence, family therapy, and things like this. And I recommend you finding an interviewing therapist before you leave, but don't start attending counseling until after you leave. And the reason is simple. Any good counselor is going to talk to you not only about what the other person is doing, but what's wrong with you. Everybody has things wrong with them, and we're not saying that victims are responsible for anything that goes on. But at the end of the day, everybody has bad habits. You may have grown up in that over-controlling or that home that had domestic violence, and so you think things are normal, even though you realize I shouldn't be getting beat on. You think things are normal that are not.
Well, that's a good point. So what Tim wrote for my Smart Divorce Smart Guide is a tip sheet, like with this 2-step process. So, part of the step 1 is leaving without a trace, working with your team. Great advice in terms of seeking the guidance and support and building your plan. But the second part, which is what you're alluding to, is breaking that domestic violence cycle and transitioning to a healthy start, which means, too often, and it's not even someone that's in an abusive relationship. I mean, the divorce rate rises with each subsequent marriage or partnership. People seem to fall into the same relationship patterns. So if you are used to being controlled and abused, you might have left that abusive relationship. There's a greater likelihood that you're going to get into another abusive relationship.
Absolutely. And there's lots of reasons, and I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, so I'm not going to start talking about all these different things that may or may not happen. All I know is that every single person in this world is different. They have different experiences that affect their motivations, that affect their decision making, and part of after you leave, I'm going to spend a lot of time with you. And you're going to go to therapy. Your therapist is going to talk about, like, hey, why do you think this about this situation? Why do you think that about that situation? And they're going to start breaking it down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially start doing some safe living training with you, which is what I call that. I'm going to do a risk assessment of your life. I'm just going to say, hey, let's talk about things that make you worry or that make you afraid. Like, let's start listing those things out, and you'd be surprised at some of the different things that come out on this. And now you have all these things that cause worry, that cause fear, and now you can start talking about them. Well, why does this cause worry? Why does this cause fear? And you can come down to the root causes and say, hey, I don't know how many times I've talked to people that have come out of these situations or that are in these situations, and say, hey, what attracted you, or what attracted you to men? What types of things do you like, or do you look for in a partner? Oh, I like somebody who's really confident. I like somebody who's really, knows what he's got going on and everything. And, I kind of like that bad boy. And I stop and I say, did you actually just hear what you said? literally, here's what I heard. You like evil people. No, that's not what I say. I'm like, well, but you said you like somebody that's sure of themselves. You like somebody who's self-confident, knows what they have going on, and you like them to be bad. Why don't you go after like a soldier or a firefighter or a paramedic? All those people are confident, sure of themselves, but you went after a bad boy. And you have to start talking about that and say, you know what, maybe when you go back to therapy, maybe you should talk about this little conversation we had, and maybe, see exactly why you see that as a good quality in men. And you know what? You can really uncover some things, and that's where you start to make progress. And you say, all these things that make you afraid, all these things that make you worry, what can we control? What can we influence about these situations or these topics or these people? And then you start to give them control.
So that's self-reflection.
Absolutely. Oh, so when I get in this situation, well, actually, I should never put myself in that situation. I should do this instead. Yes, absolutely. And then you're going to come across things that are kind of outside of your control, but you can prepare for. Like street crime. Well, there's really no such thing as random street crime. Criminals don't just say, oh, look, I'm going to go get that person because it's random. They look at how you're dressed. They look at the jewelry you wear. They look at how much you're not paying attention to anything, because they want as little conflict as possible with as high return. It's risk versus benefits all the time. So if we can teach you, hey, when you're in these situations, or when you think about these situations, or when you plan these events, or when you're going to have to talk to these people, this is some strategies that you should employ. This is how you should conduct yourself. This is how you should think about it. Never allow yourself to be put in this type of situation. Go over here as well. And so now you're influencing everything that you can. There are certain things that are out of your control, but once you know that you've prepared for everything that you can, now you stop worrying, because you say, hey, I'm prepared for everything that's foreseeable, and I can just be vigilant and know. Another thing is, hey, when is a situation becoming unacceptable? It started off being okay, but now it's taken a turn to where I'm not comfortable with this anymore, and learning to say, I'm done. I'm going to walk away from this situation. And that's a huge part of giving these victims, or now that they've left, former victims, because once, in my opinion, once you take action, you're no longer a victim. You decide you're not going to be it anymore. Now you have to learn how to not be a victim and take control of your life.
Wow. So for any women that is abused, you definitely want Tim or someone like Tim on your team.
And that's the tough thing, right? Because, as selfish and terrible as this sounds, most of these people don't have any money. They don't have any means to pay for a service like this. And I can only volunteer so much of my time. Other people can only volunteer so much of their time. One of the things that I would love to do is, and that's why, we've talked about this, Deb, that's why I contributed to your book, and that's why we're doing this radio show, is not only to inform people that there's another option out there, but let's raise awareness. Hey, there's a better way to handle these situations, to actually give people more of a chance to not only leave successfully and do it safely, but also let's get on the road to living a successful life without fear. And by successful, I mean living on your own terms. You can do whatever you want to do. You can be whatever you want to be. You may want to get remarried. You may not. But at the end of the day, you're living on your own terms. Somebody else is not dictating them to you. And you are not living in constant fear and worry. So hopefully at some point, we can get support for a nonprofit so that we can start education on a mass scale, and say, hey, there's a different way to do this. And we can train other people to look at these situations this way and start putting it out on a more widespread, other than just me.
I love that. See, Steve, I told you, this is a great way to begin our 2015.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tim, you were amazing. And I just want to point out or say, Tim is like just such an amazing individual. I mean, he does this on his own time, on his own dollar, that what our next guest is going to be one of the victims he helped rescue.
Yeah, you guys are really going to, well, I'm not going to say you're really going to enjoy it, because there's definitely very disturbing parts to Rachel's story. But Rachel was probably because of the different dynamics and how it did turn into a stalking case and different things, one of the more difficult cases I worked on. But it took 9 months to get clear of the situation to the point where there was a clear separation and he was not in control anymore. And now she is remarried to a great guy who has and keeps jobs, and she's living a happy life with the 2 kids that she escaped with, plus a new baby.
Oh, that's heartwarming. That's a beautiful story, and one I hope we get to hear more about.
Definitely.
So, Tim, how do our listeners get a hold of you? Is there a website or an email address if they want to reach out to you?
There is a website. It's very basic, but there's contact info on there. It's wenzelgroup.net, or you can reach out to me directly at Tim at wenzelgroup.net.
All right.
That's
good.
fabulous. And if people want to read the tip sheet that Tim wrote, you can get it by ordering the Smart Divorce Smart Guides. And for our readers, for our listeners, if you want this, just say that you heard about the Smart Divorce Smart Guide, this specific tip sheet, email me and I'd be happy to give you 10% off.
Email address, Deb?
It's Deborah, DEBORAH, at thesmartdivorce.com, or give me a call at 905-695-0270, and I'd be thrilled to mail it out right away.
Very good. Tim Wenzel, thanks so much for being on the show. It's great information, and thank you for what you do.
Oh, thanks for having me on. And as far as what I do, it's a passion. I feel that, if we have these talents and we can use them for good, that it's kind of our human duty to do so.
Yeah.
Now that's paying it forward.
You bet. Well, before I let you go, Deborah, tell me what's been going on with the Smart Divorce. It's been a while. I want to catch up just briefly here on your book, your guides, and all that is Deborah Moskovich and the Smart Divorce.
I'm telling you, I've never been busier. It's been amazing. I've been speaking at all sorts of professional organizations, AFCC, Association of Family and Conciliation Courts. I just did a workshop the other day and webinar for OACCPP, Ontario Association of Coaches and Counselors, educating professionals about the divorce process so they can so that they can help clients better. So it's been phenomenal. Not only am I helping individuals all across North America, and actually I've had clients in Europe now too, but helping professionals be better at what they do to guide their clients through the divorce process, because not everybody understands divorce.
Right.
So, the Smart Divorce Toolkit is just going off the shelf. But for DSR listeners, again, I'd be happy to provide 10% off when they buy the Smart Divorce Toolkit. So just email me at Deborah, DEBORAH, at thesmartdivorce.com. Give me a call, 905-695-0270, and let's talk.
And real briefly for our new listeners, tell them what is in that kit and how it can benefit them. It's for people who are just contemplating divorce, or explain that.
People are contemplating divorce, in the throes of divorce, even post-divorce, because they just have a hard time moving forward. So it comprises of 3 components. One is the Smart Divorce, which is my first book, which is actually a Canadian bestseller and a leading book in the U.S. And it's my journey through divorce. I interviewed over 100 leading professionals across North America. So you really get a balanced perspective of the divorce process, and it empowers you with information to ask questions, be prepared. Then we've got the Smart Divorce Smart Guides, comprised of 24 tip sheets on various aspects of the divorce process, from, what about the kids, to domestic violence. I've got a number of ones on domestic violence. How to tell your spouse you want to leave. So there's a lot of information in there from other professionals, But what's interesting is it's so unique because oftentimes the topics I talk about aren't easily found online. And then the last one are 4 CDs that I've worked on with Robert Simon, who is Dr. Robert Simon, who is one of North America's leading psychologists. And it's really helpful to listen to the emotional divorce, the legal divorce, smart co-parenting, and rebuilding your life post-divorce. It's an awesome set to help you save time, money, and your sanity.
Right.
So there's the 3 parts, the 2 books and 4 CDs.
Yeah, really good products. I highly recommend them for anyone going through a divorce. And also, of course, Deborah is a divorce consultant, one of the brightest people I've ever met in the field of divorce, knowing just about every aspect. And she's there to help you walk through the process. A lot of things we don't know when we enter into divorce. And they can call you, Deb, or do this via Skype. How is this done?
Well, I work with individuals all across North America. So oftentimes it's by Skype. So it's almost like an in-person meeting at my office. And there's individuals that just would prefer to use the good old-fashioned phone. So whatever works for you, works for me.
So you help them understand more of how the legal system works, answer a lot of questions for them.
There's a number of ways as I work. I work at, number one, at empowering you with information.
Yeah.
So we talk about the legal process. We talk about problem solving. What are the things that you need to ask and work more effectively, cost effectively, and efficiently with your team? I help people build their team. Tim is one of my resources. So I've got lawyers, mental health professionals, financial experts, parenting experts. Pretty well, no matter where you live, because I'm so well connected, I can find the team of professionals for you. And I try to craft that team so that they've got the right resource set for you. So if you're in a domestic violence situation, you don't want just any family law lawyer. You really want a lawyer who's skilled in that area.
Yes.
If you've got mobility issues, you want to find a lawyer that's skilled at helping you move out of the country or the state or the province. So there's a lot of different things to look at, and I try to help match professionals with my clients' needs, as well as just helping you think outside the box. I mean, divorce is something that is full of fear, and how many people have been through divorce? That prepare for divorce. You prepare for marriage. You don't necessarily prepare for divorce.
Right.
And so I am your thinking partner and resource.
And a neutral partner, which I find very helpful because a lot of people try to talk to friends or family. That's not always the best source to talk to. They tend to take your side, and they don't know a lot of the steps to taking divorce either. So it's really helpful to have someone that knows.
Yeah, it's a balanced perspective. That's what I provide.
Yeah, and then people think, well, I don't know, divorce is so expensive, it's going to cost a lot of money. But I always say these things really don't cost. They end up, they pay. I mean, it's worth something for you because if you don't know what you're doing, you sit down with a consultation with an attorney, paying $450 an hour, and you want to talk to them about your, relationship problems. The attorney many times will sit there and listen, but they're not equipped to give you the information you need to hear.
No, so not only that, so they're listening and you get a legal bill of $3,000.
Right.
And you haven't accomplished anything. So with my help, I can actually save you thousands of dollars, hundreds if not thousands of dollars by preparing more effectively and with the lawyer. And if you do have some emotional issues that you want dealt with, then of course I'm going to refer you to a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes, people don't even think of the questions that they need to ask the professionals, and I'm going to help them think of all those questions. I make sure that all my clients write it down, take the notes with them so that they can work more effectively.
Very good. And do you do like a free consult, or someone can call you first and you talk about this before they enter into a program, or how does that work?
Yeah, so they can call me first, and I'm happy to provide 10 minutes of coaching time where we talk about what they need and some of the considerations to see if my process is right for them. And then I've got some really cost-effective programs as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to last forever, so it's not like they're getting into something that's they can't get out of. They go and they get what they need and they're done, right?
Exactly. So, I've got clients that, for some of them, 2 hours of coaching time with me is all that they need. There's other clients where I'm coaching them throughout the whole process. But I'm really conscious of the financial cost because I don't want to be that added layer. Mm-hmm. But for some, it as we go along, it keeps on cutting down on their legal bills, and I find it very helpful. You know, you need some people need that extra help. For me, when I went through my own divorce, I wish that there was someone like me, because my file stayed open for 7 very long years. It was financially and emotionally very costly.
Right. Yep, I've heard that many times before from many people. Yeah. And your website is still thesmartdivorce.com?
It is thesmartdivorce.com, www.thesmartdivorce.com. And there's a contact page on there, but feel free to reach out at Deborah, Deborah, at thesmartdivorce.com or 905-695-0270. Call me. Let's talk.
She has a Twitter page, too. A lot of good resources you put out there. And
like me on Facebook.
Yeah, well, she's all over. Miss Worldwide right here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Debbie. I'm glad to have you back with The Smart Divorce. And we'll have more shows coming up as promised. So look for them right here on Divorce Source Radio. It's The Smart Divorce with Deborah Moskovich. Thanks, Debbie. We'll catch you next time.
Looking forward to it.
As always, I hope the program helped you. If you have a comment or question you'd like to ask us, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voicemail on our listener line at area code 248-686-2256. Or drop us an email with your question or comment to divorcesourceradio@gmail.com. New programs are available every week on divorcesourceradio.com, as well as iTunes, BlackBerry, Stitcher, and all over the web. If you'd like to be notified when new programs are available, you can follow us on Twitter. Our follow word is Divorce Source. Also, if you're not listening from our website, I invite you to stop by divorcesourceradio.com, where you'll find a complete program archive. If you're looking for a specific subject, simply type it into our search engine, and chances are you'll find what you're looking for. We also have other resources available at our website as well. And while you're on our website, click on the Facebook icon and join the growing Divorce Source Radio Facebook community. Thanks for listening. Until next time, make it a great week and stay healthy. I'm Steve